Hi everyone, welcome to the course POS300. We're going to study contemporary issues in world politics this B session of the spring 2020 semester. I'm the instructor. I've taught this class a few times. I've been an instructor here at ASU for about 5 years, and I've taught. I think this was one of the first classes that I taught uh, as a full-time instructor at ASU. Before then, I was a graduate student here as well. I got my PhD in political science. My major concentration was international relations, and my minor was political theory. And so that I'm telling you that because the course has evolved a little bit over time, and so uh, I'll probably talk about that a little bit when I start talking about the contents. I'm also telling you that because my my interests lie in international politics, and they also lie in the sort of intersection between international politics and theory, right? And so that's going to inform what I'm looking for in the class. And so let me give you a quick background, a quick overview of the class right now, and you'll notice there's other videos under this one that will help you more with the nuts and bolts of what's going to happen. So theoretical underpinning of the class is this. We live in a world where events happen, phenomena happen, issues arise. Um, Things like nuclear proliferation by North Korea or Iran, things like the coronavirus, these things happen, and we try to understand them. And oftentimes, in our daily life, we're sort of influenced and have immediate access to media there, and we learn about what's happening in the world. We learn the facts. Oftentimes, they'll tell us facts and events and timelines. They'll have commentary from people who will try and explain what this means. And oftentimes, that's what we'll get. And what I want to do in this class is say, look, let's have a look at that. Let's see these events and what's happening. But let's go behind that and have a behind that, right? Let's go over to this other place, let's say, and look at what work academics are putting out, theoretical works that try to explain these issues and these events that arise sporadically, and um, uh, sometimes it might appear sort of randomly or surprisingly. Let's see what sort of work is out there by academics who try to understand underlying trends, underlying themes, underlying theory. What makes these things happen? What do these things mean? Are these things good or bad things, or evaluative types of work as well? So we'll look at this in the class. And that's the big theoretical underpinning of the class, that we see events, they come and go, but academics write about and see these events as part of a greater a greater explanation about how the world works, how international actors behave, what nuclear weapons mean, what health security means. And so that's what we'll do. We'll look at that, and we'll decide sort of how helpful that is, the work of academics, how helpful it is, how it fits in with the journalistic approach. And ultimately, sort of as a minimum, we'll leave the class having delved a little bit deeper into some of the issues that are happening today. I hope that you'll enjoy that, as I certainly have enjoyed teaching this over the past few years. Just before I end this video, I'll give a quick list of the things that we'll be covering in this semester, in this iteration of the course. And then the next video will be a sort of course overview, giving you the nuts and bolts of what each week will look like. Okay, so we're going to look at this semester health security, of course, in connection with coronavirus. That's dominating the news right now as I make this at the beginning of the B session, in March 2020. We'll look at the rise of China, which has been for now quite an interesting issue for a long time. We looked at it. It's hard to get away from the coronavirus, right? Which of course began, at least as far as we can ascertain, began in China. When I've taught this in the past, right, it's been about the South China Sea, the shipping in the South China Sea. It's been about China building those islands, those islands into the South China Sea and really claiming that as their territory. But that, of course, is part of a greater theme of China rising economically and politically into the global scene. Right, so we'll look at that. That's still relevant today. We'll look at European migration. Now, of course, when I first taught this class, we were looking at Syrian migration through Turkey, oftentimes, and Greece. But migration is still an issue in Europe, and so we'll look at that. It's not as big of an issue as it was when I first taught the class, but I know I read the newspaper a couple of weeks ago in Turkey were again pushing migrants towards the borders of Europe, and that's an interesting geopolitical situation there, with Turkey being so close to Syria, and seemingly turning on and off the flow of migrants depending on what sort of relationship they have with the Europeans, especially Germany, I think, at the time. So, that's still ongoing, and and it's not just Syrian refugees that are coming through. There's other, we should think about the context a little bit of the election of Salvini's party, his elevation into the government, and his sort of anti-migrant stance in Italy, which is not as popular as Greece as a migration route, but is perhaps the second most important. And so we should look at his attempts to prevent migration, the boats landing from North Africa and that sort of thing. That's certainly been an important issue recently. Nuclear proliferation, which seems to have died down a little bit. We did see some tests a couple of days ago from North Korea where they were firing projectiles, unidentified projectiles, according to the South Koreans. That's probably a standard that's going to continue, and that has continued for a long time. But we haven't talked much about nuclear proliferation too much, in the recent past. That, of course, could change, because, of course, it still is going on in the background with Iran and certainly with North Korea from an American Western point of view. So we'll look into that. We'll look into what academics have to say about nuclear weapons, about the spread of nuclear weapons. We've got a great debate there by Waltz and Sagan on that. So we'll look at that. Responsibility to protect is another issue that I've talked about in the past, and that it was more important, I think, when we were dealing with Libya. But of course, I read as well the other day that we're withdrawing troops from Afghanistan. Responsibility to protect, which I also think of as Western intervention, oftentimes, right, into other affairs. We're going to look at Brexit. Brexit's evolved quite a lot over the time I've been teaching this, and so we'll start to update the literature and the material, but at least the contemporary stuff, we might still have some of the same theoretical basis that we'll use. And that's the beauty of theoretical bases, right, is that they tend to stay more constant over time, right? And so it gives us something to get a handle on rather than just sort of following the news like that. And the last one is one that's probably the closest issue, well, I won't say closest to my heart, but it's the one that I've, in my academic life, have devoted, I suppose, the most academic energy, I suppose, towards it. The Macedonian name issue, which we're talking about a year ago now, I suppose, when this was said to have been resolved by the change of the name of the Republic of Macedonia to North Macedonia. So that's something that I'd be interested in talking about, and certainly I'd be interested in sharing with you. I did my dissertation on a topic that was central, I think, to that negotiation and to that relationship between Greece and Macedonia, and that sort of southern Balkans region. Incidentally, before I end the video, we do a study abroad. Myself and Professor Sivak lead that over to Macedonia, and so if you're interested in that, please do get in touch. All right, I'm going to end the video there, and the next video will be sort of an overview of what you can expect on a week-by-week basis.